Andy Murray is going to be joining Novak Djokovic's coaching team for 2025 Australian Open. Murray is going to be in the box in Australia. This was a very shocking announcement on Saturday, just gone. And well, Andy Murray not retired for very long, and back in at the very forefront of men's tennis in this capacity. I have to say, I did love their social media posts. Uh, well, Novak's anyway, the phrase he never liked retirement anyway, which was kind of a joke on Andy Murray when he retired earlier in the year, never even liked tennis anyway. So that was, I think, greatly amusing. But yeah, why do you think this has come about? Do you think this would have been an instant yes from Andy Murray, Joel, when
Ooh.
he was asked?
I think I think we've seen from players who retire that it's very difficult for people when they've been doing something their whole life just to hang up their racket and relax and do nothing. And I think this is another example of that. With Andy Murray, he wants to be a busy guy. He's doing his kind of his tour, talking about all of his stories next year in the summer. And I think, he wants to keep busy. And I just think that it's very hard for elite players to truly switch off. And Murray always wants to challenge himself. And if he can't challenge himself anymore on the tennis court, but he still wants to be involved in the game, then I certainly think there are other ways to do that. And it looks like, for him, coaching and coaching with someone he knows inside and out from his playing days, I think there's a situation where there's an advantage to him, but there's also an advantage to Djokovic because he'll get
Mm.
a brand new side of thinking from a current player that he has grown up with, that you don't maybe necessarily get with those super coaches who played in a previous generation. So I see it as sort of a win-win scenario for both, but I do think that it just shows tennis players just really have a hard time of giving up tennis for good.
I mean, they do know each other, very well, obviously playing in juniors and as adults. They're only a week apart in age as well, same year, a week apart. So there's sort of a kinship between them, I think, that maybe that's never gone away. Um, Chris, you asked our audience on social media, didn't you, what
Mm.
they thought, and what was the results of that?
I thought we've got to find out because we weren't sure what to make of it. So we thought, let's see what our audience think. And I worded some of these to be as friendly as possible. So I didn't say, no, this isn't right. I said, not sure it's the move. It could work and it's the perfect match. And 34% of the audience said it's a perfect match. 41% are optimists. They're kind of saying it could work. They're not
Mm.
sure it will. And then 25% said they're not sure it's the move. So quite divided, but I think we're erring on the positive side of things. I think a lot of us, it was quite shocking to hear that news. So it's probably not a negative response to it. It's probably much more of a we'll see what will happen because it is quite uncharted
Yeah.
territory to see someone who, was part of the big four, now part of the coaching team of one of his rivals. And I think that's also what's so interesting about this. And when I saw this, I was thinking, okay, probably Murray doesn't really want to give up the tennis connection. We talked about this. Joel's mentioned it. He's addicted. He played probably a little bit too long when it came to the end there. Maybe put himself and his whole team through a lot more than maybe was absolutely necessary, as some things that he's alluded to. But it is interesting to have someone who has been playing against all of these top players so recently and has been playing against them and getting some decent results, even when he hasn't been at his physical prime.
Mm.
And I think that's a very interesting perspective of Murray finding a way to compete and finding a way to win, even though he hasn't necessarily been playing the best tennis of his career at the time. And he's been dealing with moving away from the sport. So I think from many different perspectives, as well as their friendship, Murray can offer very valuable insight in terms of actually playing against these people, but also experiencing some of the similar, I'm not saying Novak Djokovic is struggling, but some of the similar challenges that he's been experiencing this year on the tour.
Yeah, I think that would be invaluable, actually, like you've both said. And maybe also Andy Murray just fancied a trip to Australia at
Yeah.
that time of the
A,
year. It
a
must be
trip on
really hard
Djokovic,
not
yeah.
to be there
I wonder what his
when
fee is, right? I'm
you're used
thinking
to it.
can't come cheap, Andy Murray.
It's just going to be so weird, I think, to see Andy Murray in Novak Djokovic's player box in Melbourne. I think we've got to take it with a little bit of pinch of salt in terms of this has just been announced for the Australian Open. We'd have no idea if this is going to continue, how it will even go. I mean, I quite like the idea. I read this. I think one of my friends suggested this to me. Like, could you see Novak Djokovic getting Andy Murray in for the Australian Open, Roger Federer in for
Ooh.
Wimbledon, Rafael Nadal in for the French Open, and I don't know,
Who would you get for
Retire
the US
Open.
Medvedev? I don't
Dominic
know.
Thiem.
Yeah. Ooh, goodness. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
could you imagine?
it will be
That'd be
very. I'm not sure
amazing.
Rafa will want to contribute towards Djokovic's GOAT status necessarily, but
Hmm.
I do think it is very. It's. I've never seen a player go this quickly into coaching another
Mm.
top athlete. Um, and I'm sure that he will be very good at it. I thought maybe Murray would coach someone a bit more junior potentially, or someone who is more up and coming, where the experience that he has is greater than potentially. I thought maybe he'd be backing Jack Draper, but that maybe hasn't materialized because Jack is in a great spot right now, and maybe that will come later. But it's quite unusual to start your coaching
Yeah.
relationship with
And
the GOAT.
and what would Kim say? Not Kim,
Not
co-host,
me.
not co-host
Kim
Kim.
just
but,
told us what she would say, Joel.
Yeah.
but, I mean, and obviously Andy Murray has a big blossoming family. Yeah. What do you think Kim's reaction to this is? The fact that
Ooh.
he's
It's
now
off
retired
again.
and it's like, oh, by the way, I'm still going back to Australia for the Australian Open.
She's probably quite used to him traveling quite a lot. So maybe she liked the peace and quiet. And now he's back and he's got nothing to do. She's like, go on, please give me 2 weeks off when you're in Australia. I don't know. I think it's interesting because you always think that people will have a bit of a transition period, as we talked about. I mean, Judy Murray thinks it's fabulous. I thought maybe he might be helping his brother in a bit of doubles. I see it more as a consulting sort of thing right now. And maybe it won't be a commitment
Yeah.
to the year. So he still can have the balance with his family. I think
Yeah.
you can get the best of both worlds from a coaching situation. And we've seen
You could
top
do that
coaches do that.
virtually if it was a consultancy type
Yeah,
situation.
yeah,
So,
and you could come
yeah.
for the ones that matter. And we know that Djokovic is going after slams. He's not going after smaller tournaments, really. He is going after one more title, that's for sure, to get 100. But it feels like more of a adding something to his team that he thinks will really benefit and really will be worthwhile adding at the moments it matters most.
Hmm.
Is there like a flip side to it in terms of this is like a last chance saloon for Novak Djokovic? He's almost like, is it desperate or clutching at
Desperate
straws?
to hire Andy Murray,
Well,
Joel.
I mean, like to go in on a path that is so radical and so rogue that no one has ever thought of. Do you think there's like, as I say, it's like a method to the madness type situation?
Ooh, I think at this stage of the career, I think why not try things? I think there's less desperation. I think it's more, you've seen this with some other players like Federer. He added Ivan Lubicic, who actually moved probably quite quickly as well from playing and being a rival of his to
Yeah.
actually being a member of his team. And I think you want different opinions. And I think potentially he's had a lot of similar opinions. He has obviously got rid of Goran. And then now he maybe has a bit of a vacancy from someone who he'd like to get a different perspective on some of his matches and what he could be doing. And I think that I'm not sure necessarily that there's anything that much more to it than thinking this could be a great
Yeah.
addition. And also, I really want to enjoy my tennis and playing tennis. And I really enjoy Andy Murray, and we've been friends for so long. This will really add a positive new lens to Australia. What do you think, Kim? Is he
Yeah, I mean, I
desperate?
think what? No,
So
I wouldn't
desperate
say,
was a harsh
No, no, it's
word.
fine.
I wouldn't
but
say desperate. I mean, I trust Djokovic's judgment with the amount that he's won. So
Will Murray be a
let's see what
vegan?
happens come January.